On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the island of Hawaii woke under a sky so clear it seemed untouched by the tensions shaping the rest of the world. At Pearl Harbor, the great anchorage of the United States Pacific Fleet, the day began with the slow rhythm of routine, a rhythm that suggested stability, distance, and the comforting illusion that the war raging across Europe and Asia was still far away. Sunday mornings at the base followed a familiar pattern. Many sailors were finishing breakfast or preparing to attend religious services. Some wrote letters home, describing ordinary details: the heat, the ocean, the anticipation of future leave. Others performed routine maintenance checks on ships that rested quietly in the harbor, their silhouettes mirrored in the calm water. Nothing in those early hours hinted that within minutes the course of global history would shift. Yet beyond the horizon, events were already in motion. For years, relations between the United States and Japan had been deteriorating. Japan's expansion across East Asia, into Manchuria, China, and later Southeast Asia, had drawn international condemnation and economic pressure. In response, the United States imposed sanctions, including restrictions on oil exports, a resource vital to Japan's military ambitions. Diplomatic negotiations continued, but beneath the surface, trust had eroded. Leaders on both sides understood that the situation was approaching a breaking point. Behind this strategic calculation stood Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, a commander who believed that if war with the United States became inevitable, Japan would need a decisive opening strike, one powerful enough to neutralize American naval strength in the Pacific and buy time for Japan to consolidate its territorial gains. The plan was bold, complex, and risky. In late November 1941, a Japanese carrier strike force slipped quietly across the northern Pacific, maintaining radio silence as it moved through cold, open waters. 6 aircraft carriers carried more than 350 planes, torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and fighters, each pilot trained for a mission designed to unfold with precise timing. As dawn approached on December 7th, the fleet reached its launch point. At Pearl Harbor, the first signs of trouble were subtle and easily overlooked. A radar station detected incoming aircraft, but the signal was misinterpreted as a flight of American planes expected from the mainland. It was a small misunderstanding, one of many small moments that together allowed surprise to remain intact. Then, at 7:48 a.m., the sky erupted. The roar of aircraft engines swept across the harbor, followed by explosions that shattered the quiet morning. Bombs struck airfields first, destroying planes lined up wingtip to wingtip. Torpedoes skimmed across the water toward battleships anchored in neat rows, their crews caught off guard by the sudden violence. Within minutes, smoke and fire transformed the landscape. One of the most devastating moments came when a bomb penetrated the deck of the USS Arizona, igniting its forward ammunition magazine. The resulting explosion tore the battleship apart in a massive fireball, killing more than 1,000 sailors almost instantly and sending a column of smoke thousands of feet into the air. Across the harbor, similar scenes unfolded. Crews rushed to battle stations. Anti-aircraft guns opened fire. Medics improvised treatment areas wherever space allowed. Some sailors dove into burning water to escape sinking ships, while others fought to rescue trapped comrades despite the chaos surrounding them. The attack came in 2 waves. The first focused on crippling the battleship's air power. The second targeted remaining infrastructure, ensuring maximum damage. Though confusion reigned, resistance grew more organized as minutes passed. Some pilots managed to take off and engage the attackers, while gunners across the base coordinated defensive fire. By 9:45 a.m., it was over. The harbor was transformed. Battleships lay sunk or burning. Airfields were littered with wreckage. Thick smoke drifted across the water, carrying the smell of fuel and scorched metal. Rescue operations began immediately, but the scale of destruction was overwhelming. In total, more than 2,400 Americans lost their lives, and over 1,000 were wounded. 18 ships were sunk or heavily damaged, and nearly 200 aircraft were destroyed. The attack had achieved tactical surprise on a scale rarely seen in modern warfare, but its consequences would extend far beyond the physical damage. News spread rapidly across the United States through radio broadcasts that interrupted regular programming. The sense of shock was immediate and profound. A nation that had been divided about entering the war now found itself unified by a shared realization. The conflict could no longer be avoided. On December 8th, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress and the nation. His speech was brief but unforgettable, framing the attack as a moment of betrayal and resolve. Within hours, the United States formally declared war on Japan, marking its full entry into World War II. Strategically, the attack had mixed results. While battleships were severely damaged, the American aircraft carriers, the most important naval assets, were not present in the harbor. Shipyards and fuel depots remained largely intact, allowing recovery to begin sooner than Japan had anticipated. More importantly, the attack galvanized American industry and public will. Factories across the country transitioned to wartime production on a massive scale. Millions enlisted or supported the war effort at home. The United States would soon become a decisive force in both the Pacific and European theaters. For Japan, the strike represented a dramatic opening, but also the beginning of a long and ultimately unsustainable conflict against a nation with vast industrial capacity. Today, Pearl Harbor stands not only as a military site, but as a place of remembrance. Beneath the water, the remains of ships still rest where they fell, serving as silent memorials to the lives lost that morning. Visitors who stand above the harbor often describe a sense of stillness, a quiet contrast to the violence that once filled the sky. The story of Pearl Harbor endures because it captures a universal truth about history. Moments that reshape the world rarely feel extraordinary while they are unfolding. They begin with ordinary mornings, routine conversations, and the assumption that tomorrow will resemble today. And then, in an instant, everything changes, forcing individuals and nations alike to confront a new reality. Pearl Harbor was not only a military turning point, it was a psychological one. A moment when distance disappeared, when a global conflict became immediate and personal, and when the trajectory of the 20th century shifted onto a path from which there would be no turning back. And perhaps that is why the story still resonates, because it reminds us how fragile normalcy can be, how quickly events can redefine the future, and how history often begins not with a warning, but with a quiet morning, a clear sky, and the sudden realization that the world we knew no longer exists.